North Texas is an incredibly diverse community, and it's no wonder with our booming economy that people from all over the world are moving here. Well, that can create certain challenges when it comes to divorce and the law that applies when we've got international issues. My guest here today is Donna Tomlinson. She is an attorney with Hargrave Family Law. She received her Juris Doctorate from the South Texas College of Law and her LLM in taxation from the University of Florida. And while she studied tax for many years, she now is a practicing family law attorney. And we're so excited to have her here today to talk with us about some of these international issues that we're seeing in family law cases. So, Donna, thanks for taking time to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
So, I want to start off and talk about some of the common issues that arise when we have people who are from other parts of the world. One of the first thing that comes to mind is jurisdiction. So, that's really sexy stuff that people need to know and understand how jurisdiction works. So, let's talk a little bit about how that applies in our family law cases.
Absolutely. So in Texas, you have to have lived in Texas for at least 6 months, and in the county where you're going to file your divorce for at least 3 months. And what can make it even more complicated is if one of the spouses lives in another country. So now you have the issue of serving that person in that country. And also, if there's property in the other country, can the court in Texas help you to divide that property? And if the child also lives in another country, can the court make rules and can the court create an order in Texas that will also be accepted in that other country? So jurisdiction, where things happen, really plays a big role in how smoothly a divorce can go and also the timeliness of that divorce, because sometimes you have to deal with all of the legal red tape and the procedures in order to actually get down to the real business of getting the divorce done.
So when it comes to jurisdiction, of course, we know as lawyers, I mean, this is the term that we use for a court. A court has to have jurisdiction in order to make orders that are
Yes.
binding on the parties, right? But we're not only dealing with our state laws when it comes to jurisdiction, we're also dealing with an international set of laws. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. For example, I'm from Jamaica. We are under, or we came up under the Commonwealth system. So now you have to deal with how the laws in that country might handle a divorce that might be in contrast to the United States. You also have to deal with whether, with regards to children, especially, that could be a whole different system as to how you can deal with custody and how you can actually get the court involved with that child. So it just makes things tricky because now you have to reconcile those two things. And in helping each party to come to some resolution, you have to take the different laws into consideration. Also, another issue with jurisdiction is, does Texas have the right to make decisions with regards to the other spouse that lives in another country? What that means is, does that person have enough contacts, or have they been in Texas enough for the courts in Texas to say, listen, we're going to make you be a part of this divorce? That's basically what it is. And so sometimes it's not as effective as you would want it to be. So then now you have another barrier that you have to kind of jump over to really deal with all of the legal ramifications in a divorce.
A phrase that some people might know is the Hague Convention.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about the Hague Convention.
So the Hague Convention is very, very important, specifically when you have a party or a spouse that lives in another country. And let's say you decide, okay, we're going to have them visit each country. Well, if one parent decides not to have the child come back to the United States, now we have an issue of how do we get that child back? And the way that works is the Hague Convention is a kind of an agreement or a certain set of laws that different countries decide to participate in. And what it does, it allows these countries to participate where one spouse may take the child and refuse to return the child. What's very, very important in the Hague Convention is what's called the home state. And that means the state where the child has been living for at least 6 months. And that's very important. If the country is not a signee or participant in the Hague, it makes it really difficult to get that child back. So what's really important is looking and making sure if you are a person that has a spouse that lives in another country, it's important to let the court in Texas know immediately so they can put certain things in place to really avoid the issue of children being taken by one parent and not being returned.
So what are some of the things that courts can do to lessen that risk?
The court can order some very specific requirements when the child has to leave the state. The court can order that there are certain applications and there are certain notifications made with the State Department in relations to the other country, also the embassy in that other country where the child is going to go. And also make sure that every time that child gets to the airport, there's certain documentation that has to be in place. And that is put in the divorce order. So that document can travel with the parent. I always recommend that parents also make sure that that document is with the embassy and also with the State Department, because then when something happens, there's already proof that this was the home state of the child and here are the precautions that were put in place. So that's very important.
And if a parent of a child has a parent living in a country that's not a signatory to the Hague Convention, what can the courts do then to help restrict the ability of the child, I guess, the risk that they'll be taken to that country?
I would recommend that that parent bring that up to the court. And then what we could do and ask court to do is to make the visitations occur in the United States. That way you don't have to worry about the potential of the child being taken. Now, the good thing with the State Department, when those things are put in place, if the child is traveling, because it's something with the State Department and it works through, I think, with all of the airlines, there will be a quick notification that the child is on a plane or that the child has gone through security to go somewhere else. So those things do work. But just in case we are in one of those 007 incidents where someone can slip through, asking the court to put travel restrictions and visitation restrictions in place is very important.
And the court can also restrict the access to the passport.
Absolutely.
So, but it can be tricky if you have a child who's a citizen of more than one country, right? Because they can have other passports.
They can have other passports. And then also, the age of the child might also put a little fly in the ointment, because if the child is young enough where you can say, okay, they could go with the other parent, then the passport issue is not such a big deal, because usually you have to travel on the passport. But hopefully parents can put all of these things in place and ensure and keep on top of it to make sure that not just the other parent is aware, but the State Department is aware each time that particular visit might take place.
And I mean, not every case is going to rise to the level of needing protections. We're going to be
Right.
In general, judges are aware that, it can be good for children to have contact with their family who is abroad. And so they're trying to balance those interests, right? So, we're usually looking at circumstances. Maybe if somebody's made a threat to take off with the children, or if there's been a period of hiding the children, then we're more likely to have higher restrictions in place.
I agree. I mean, I have parents right now who have arrangements where the children go for the entire summer. There's some parents who say, I want my child to go to school in another country, and they agree, and it works really, really well. But even in those instances, just because things change, sometimes another person, my new spouse, may come in the picture and housing dynamics change, travel dynamics change. I always recommend that you just still have that there, but working together for the benefit of the child is always the best option.
It is. Unfortunately, it's not available for everybody, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Let's talk a little bit about language. And of course, we have people for whom, English is not their first language. And for some, they're really not conversant in English. So what What steps are put in place to help somebody who doesn't speak English navigate the legal system?
Well, the best thing and the things that the courts have done is that they have certified interpreters who can come to the court and can help with that. Sometimes it doesn't work because there are some limitations on some of the languages that are available where they're certified translators. One of the ways to try to navigate that is to have that translator with you while you are talking to your attorney, because that person does not have to be certified, but they can be very effective in translating. And then hopefully what can be done is that you can really try to navigate through mediation with the other side, ways to talk about things that you need to resolve. Unfortunately, with the court, it's a matter of depending which judge you are before that will allow someone who is not certified to assist. Another way is to get documents already translated for the court so the court can read it in English. But that is one barrier, and it's not just with Texas, it is nationwide that sometimes the certified translators are limited in the languages. So we're still working on that, trying to make sure we can inform the courts on how difficult it is for a party to really participate in their legal divorces and try to get it done. So we're still working on that and hoping that not just in Texas, but nationwide, we get a lot more certified interpreters.
Just so we have more certified interpreters and maybe some other rules in place to open it up so that we can bring in somebody who can serve as an interpreter, because it can be a real barrier to due process.
Yes.
When somebody either doesn't have the resources to hire and pay for the travel and all of that, or, just having them present and
Yes.
proceedings.
And the more that happens, I think the more inclined the courts will be to make those suggestions, because it is actually, I found out through doing some research, because I'm actually doing an article on it, is that the courts play a big role in informing how we need interpreters and how we need to make those changes. So I think the more that the court meets into those obstructions, that the more likely they are to really work at changing the rules to allow people who are not certified but are very well versed in the language to then participate in the proceedings on behalf of litigants.
Yeah, it's really good information to know, especially if you are someone who is in need of legal services and
Yes.
you're looking for resources. Another question that comes up from time to time in practice is when, maybe you have a couple who lives here in Texas, but they went on vacation for the summer, to another country and decided to get a divorce in the other country, one of them, and then they come back to Texas, and lo and behold, is that Texas going to recognize a foreign divorce judgment? What is your experience in terms of, when you have a foreign judgment, what a court here will do with that?
Well, there are two things that are going to be the issue. The first thing you would have to do is to register that judgment in Texas for Texas courts to be able to look at those rules. And then you have an issue where the laws in that country may be in direct contradiction to the laws in Texas. And so then a court in Texas cannot enforce that particular decree. I would recommend, if that's what you plan to do, then you might want to talk to a lawyer here before and find out, and also maybe have both attorneys in different countries kind of communicate to see where those two laws may be in contradiction with each other and see how that can be resolved. There are some times when there's a law in that country that's focused on property, and the Texas court would not have the power to then make those property divisions because that was done in that country. So it's important to talk to lawyers from both countries before you make those decisions so you're properly informed.
And I think you bring up a really good point, and that is sort of coordinating services or at least I know you have relations with attorneys all over the country because of cases that you've been involved in,
Yeah.
right? And so sometimes you have to have that local counsel
You have
relationship.
You have to, because it's very important. Things that we take for granted in our country are completely different in another country. I've had relationships with people in Kenya, and the way their system works in law enforcement is actually more active and quicker than going through CPS like we do in Texas. So it's a different ballgame. So if you're thinking, oh, they just went to the police, that's not important, when in reality, that's actually the piece of information. So just talking with counsel in another country, they can give you such a wealth of information and help you navigate the system and understand it better so you can help your client more effectively here in the US.
All right. So you mentioned you're from Jamaica.
Yes.
How did you get interested in law and especially in family law?
Wow. Okay. So, growing up in Jamaica, part of the British system, and I always thought I wanted to do international corporate law. And I came here on a full academic scholarship at Prairie View A&M University, finished school, and started teaching high school and taught business law and went, oh, wait, I wanted to be an attorney. So I went to law school and started as an international tax and corporate and securities attorney. And I enjoyed it. The market downturn in 2008, nobody was doing deals anymore. And I thought, how late, what should I do? And then I got divorced. And and I handled my own divorce. And I wouldn't say I enjoyed it, but it was not as intimidating as I thought it was going to be. And then I had friends who would reach out to me from time to time. And I just started to really enjoy it because it was a shorter period than doing a merger, which took months. And that also, there's such a deep level of satisfaction in helping someone go through probably one of the most emotional times of their life and helping them navigate it. It is a very, it makes me feel very good about what I do. And so when I started doing it, I kind of dove right in, and the feeling of helping people just navigate this really hard space, especially when there are children involved, because as a parent, you're dealing with your own emotional issues. And at the same time, you're having to navigate with your children without traumatizing them. So taking the legal part out of their hands and helping them and guiding them through it is really, really good. And I really enjoy helping people and seeing them kind of blossom, whether it's a male or female, kind of come through it and go, okay, I can move on. So I really enjoy.
You, in fact, are a living testament of
I am.
great next chapters.
I am twice divorced, and I tell my clients, and they're like, "What?" Yes, twice divorced. But the first time was a lot more. We agreed, we knew what we were doing. Second time, not so much. And so I've been the single mom, and I've also been the person who has been looking at what might increase and become domestic violence. And so learning what to do and how to do it and how to navigate it is something that I'm familiar with. And I share pieces of myself with my clients a lot, because I think sometimes clients come in and they're so timid, or they don't want to talk about what's happening. And I've opened up to them so they can understand. I totally get where you're coming from. No judgment here. Have been down that road twice. So it really helps. And it makes me feel really comfortable about knowing that I've been there, so I can really relate to them on some level.
And I love Donna. You're always up for a challenge. So
Oh, yes.
and our go-to for a lot of complex issues in the firm. And we love your collaborative style because you're always sharing information with us. What I'd love to know as we kind of wrap up is, what message of hope do you have for somebody right now who might be watching this? And maybe they're international, maybe they're not, but they're really struggling with that, decision. Should I leave my partner? Should I not? What message of hope do you have for that person?
So I would say what is really important is how you as an individual are able to navigate life. You have to really look at what I need, especially if they're children. Am I being as present as I need to be while I'm still in this this marriage? Or if I stay in this marriage, are things going to change? My message to you is think about who you are and what you need to do to move forward in life. It is really, really important. And a lot of times we put ourselves on the back page and say, we just need to have a wonderful home for our children. Your children can sense the tension. They can sense that something is wrong. And sometimes the things that are going on are what they're going to pattern their lives after. So my recommendation to you is to look at your life, think of what you need to do for yourself to be a whole good person, a good parent. And if that means that you have to walk away from the marriage after having tried, then it's something you should do, and you should not feel guilty about it, because what you're doing is creating a wonderful, safe space for yourself and for your children to flourish in the future.
Wise words. If you want to learn more about Donna and about her practice, we'll include a link below, and we would encourage you to check her out. And of course, check out our other videos and be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for more information about family law. So thank you, Donna.
Thank you for having me.